Hi, everyone. This is Steve Wright with SCD Lifestyle, and you're listening to the SCD Lifestyle Solution Podcast number 15. Okay, tonight on the phone with me, again, my partner in crime, Jordan Reesner. How's it going, man?
I'm doing great, man. I'm just excited because we have a special guest this evening.
I know that's what's so exciting is we have another guest on our show tonight, and we're really excited because she helps other people kind of the same way we do. She helps other people on Facebook. She answers questions a lot. So I think it's going to be a really valuable resource for us to learn from her and for you to listen to her speak as well. And her name is Tiffany Reilly, and she is the owner of the SD support group on Facebook. And you should definitely all go like that group and join it as soon as you're done listening to this. But how you doing, Tiffany?
I'm great. How are you?
Pretty good. Well, we want to thank you for being on the show. And I guess for everybody that's listening, I know you have a great story. So why don't you
Mhm.
just kind of start off talking about how, what you've overcome and how SCD has changed your life?
Okay. Well, let me start from the beginning, I guess. When I was younger, I had a lot of stomach issues. Um, Back then they wrote it off as, oh, she's just lactose intolerant, and, I'd have just stomach pains here and there. But, I mean, mostly I lived a pretty normal, relatively normal um, childhood in the younger years besides all that. Um, But when I hit my early 20s, that's when everything kind of got really bad and crazy. I started with like random diarrhea, nausea, vomiting. I was just tired all the time. And it seemed like in the beginning I constantly was sick. Like I had anything that anybody had, a cold, a virus, stomach flu maybe, um, just everything. And I started seeing doctor after doctor after doctor, and all of them kept saying, you just have IBS. It's just something you're just going to have to live with. Make sure you take vitamin C if that's why you keep getting sick all the time. And, I just really was not getting any answers at all. And I had gone through 2 GI doctors, neither of which could diagnose me. Um, and they kept doing colonoscopies and EGDs and just everything. I just could not get answers. And then, in the meantime, during all this, when this was happening, I kept getting bladder infections and UTIs, and I got diagnosed with endometriosis. I had borderline hyperthyroidism. So I was just really, really sick all the time. And then finally, well, in 2006, I started a gluten-free diet because I had done Atkins just very briefly just to lose weight, and I noticed that being on Atkins actually alleviated some of my stomach issues. And, I started digging a little bit more, and I ran into somebody that actually had celiac disease, and she talked to me a little bit about being gluten-free, and, that's something that's worked for her. So I started that in 2006, and I felt a little bit better. Still had all these other issues going on, and the GI stuff was still going on anyway. But anyway, so in 2008, oh my gosh, I got so sick, and I just remember like sitting there eating my oatmeal, thinking, okay, this was at that time my go-to food of when my stomach started acting up. And everything was going through me, water, everything. And I looked at my husband and I said, that's it. I need to go to the ER again. And he's like, okay, I'll take you. And he dropped me off. And, I just was thoroughly expecting the same old, you're in, you're out, no answers, here's some pain medicine, have a nice day, which ironically did not happen. It's when I actually got my diagnosis of Crohn's disease. They did a CT scan, and it lit up like a Christmas tree. I mean, it was just, throughout everything. So they put me on Pentasa, and they kept me a couple days, and they also ended up, I think, running some steroids through my IV. And I left there, and they told me to follow up with another GI doctor, which I did. and it was the same thing, another colonoscopy, another EGD. A pill can was not offered, and he just kind of said, well, you're just going to stay on Pentasa, and if it gets bad, you're going to have to come back and see me. So kept suffering until finally 2010. I went to, I had my daughter, and I guess like the whole experience of having her, I had her via C-section, threw me into a huge flare. I mean, a week later, I was just so sick, couldn't get out of bed. I'm waking up with her in the middle of the night, or waking up to go to the bathroom, or throwing up, or whatever it may have been at that time. It was just insane. So I went back to the doctor and talked to him a little bit more about diet, which, again, he's like, there's no diet that you can do that's going to help this. Just nothing is going to help. And even when I mentioned, not eating wheat, he just said, well, you don't have celiacs, and, there is no diet role in this. So anyway, I started digging around some websites, and I found out about SCD. And I thought, this might be something that's worth a try. I mean, it started to make sense to me. And in the same sense, which is really funny because, talk about divine intervention, my aunt decided to send me the book. She just knew that I had stomach issues. Someone had mentioned Breaking the Vicious Cycle to her. She ordered it off Amazon and had it sent to my house, and it showed up before she had even called. I'm thinking, okay, that's odd. How did this book get here? I'm reading about it on the Internet, and here it is. So she called me and said, oh, by the way, you should have got this book, and I think you should try it. And I read it that day, and the science just made sense to me, and I was like, that's it. I'm sold. I'm starting tomorrow. And I literally started the next day. I had my husband go to the grocery store because I was too sick to shop, and I had to send him with a list of things to get. And I mean, it was bland. It was a very bland beginning, but very much worth it, definitely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long story, but I mean, it just has such a great ending to it. So, SCD has changed my life amazingly, just amazingly. And when people say, well, how's it changed you, or what's better? And I just say to them, what isn't better? Like, what hasn't it helped? I mean, for just the GI symptoms, I have no diarrhea, no pain, no bloating, no gas pains, no pain when I eat. The reflux that I'd had before is gone. My upper GI pain is gone. And then totally unrelated things started clearing up and healing and getting better. Like, I started getting more energy. I mean, I'm back at the gym. I'm exercising or working out 4 to 5 times a week. I had started with all these weird rashes and arthritic symptoms, which they were trying to, test me for lupus. That came back negative. But anyway, that's gone. My mind is clear. My lower back pain that I've had forever has lessened. My periods are better. And, like, acne that I've had since a kid that I just thought, okay, that's just something I'm just going to have to live with, is gone. So it's all these extra things that has cleared up for me that I had no idea, that the diet would even touch that was even related in any way to what was going on in my body.
That's totally amazing, and I'm really happy for you. I know we're both really happy for you, and it is astonishing to hear. You're another awesome testament to just how much diet impacts the different areas of our health.
I know. It really is amazing. Amazing.
So what's even really so cool about this is you started, in what month did you start in 2010?
I started the first week in June of 2010.
Okay.
And here we are in January of 2011, so 7 months, and it's like I just can't believe the difference. I mean, just in that short of a time, I keep thinking, where am I going to be in 2 years? Like, what's going to be better in 2 years? It's already, all these amazing things have happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's spectacular. In 6 months to get that kind of changes and to have them lasting, that
Mhm.
is awesome. Completely
Yeah.
incredible. So, I mean, you're kind of like an outlier in the fact that you were just at a point in your life where you read the book and you started the next day, like literally the next day, which is
Mhm. So yep.
awesome. That is so
Yep.
awesome. What was it? What made you just start right away like that? Like, there's a lot of people out there that kind of, even Jordan and I took a while to get started. So, what was
Right.
it for you that just, sold you like it's time to do this?
I think it was mostly because, every drug in the past that they had put me on, whether it was for my Crohn's symptoms or just anything else that I had going on, I just always had, if you ever read the list of like things that could happen, we would laugh because we'd be like, we just put my name there because it would be me with side effects and things that would happen. It would just happen to me. And I mean, some of them you start taking them and the symptoms were worse than what you were trying to, fix them with. So, and like I said, I just knew that there was, all that time, I knew that there was something with diet that had to play a role, whether it be gluten-free or, when I told you I did Atkins before, and felt a little bit better. It was nothing like, the way that I feel on STD in any, there doesn't really compare. But I just knew it was something. I knew it was something more. And when I read her book and she talked about the science and the way it broke down, in our digestion and things like that, it just made so much sense. It was like the answer that I've been looking for.
Yeah, the science that Elaine lays out and the simple diagrams, I think, are just a beautiful representation of, for a lot of people, it's like, wow, that's me. That describes me because
Right.
I know it spoke to me as well when I read it.
Hmm.
So,
Yep.
are you still on Pentasa then?
No. I weaned myself off, I think, at the end of month 2 because
Wow.
I just had reactions to that one, even taking it. I knew it was helping to a certain degree, but I just, it would just burn my stomach every time I would take one. I was on let's see, 2 pills 4 times a day, I think is what I started with. Um, and then just eventually wean myself off of it against my doctor's judgment.
Yeah, that's what I
but
wanted to. I'm really curious to hear more about that because that's something that we get in our inbox a lot. Excuse me, a lot is,
mhm,
I've started the diet. Um, when can I stop the pills, or how do I stop the pills, or,
right,
and being that we're not doctors, we can't necessarily be
exactly,
doling out advice to stop taking
exactly,
medications. So, um,
right.
what made you just say, what, this is my body, and I want to try it without the pills?
I just think because I just wanted to live clean. I just wanted to get everything out of me, every toxin. And I know it's terrible to say toxin because I know medicine really is so important, especially with IBD. But, when you're having such bad reactions to it anyway and it's making things worse, it was just, for me, it was just an easy answer. I just, I was done. And what I did do, though, is I switched to a natural um, anti-inflammatory, which was boswellia. And I do see a difference with that. So as soon as I had weaned off Pentasa, I waited a few days, and then I started the boswellia.
Okay, great. Did you like when you started the weaning of the Pentasa, were your
Hmm.
symptoms pretty much like, really improved from the SED, or were you still kind of in your healing path, sort of flip-flopping, or what was going
I
on at
was,
that point?
yeah, I was definitely still in my healing path. I mean, certain things like definitely, and see, everybody says what made you stick to it, because I was still flaring by the end of month 1, and still having diarrhea, although it lessened. I could tell a difference in myself. But, once I stopped the Pentasa, when I started weaning off of it, I could feel, my bowels were getting, a little angry at me and stuff. But I knew that that was just, it had become reliant on it. So I knew that that was probably going to happen. I mean, of course you get scared when you have any kind of symptom like that. And I did go to the doctor, and I did make him aware of what I was doing. Not that he agreed with it, but I did want to make him aware of what I was doing at that time. And I did explain the diet to him. I showed him the book. I, definitely explained the science to him. And he kind of wished me good luck, but he said, I'll see you back in a few weeks, because he didn't think I was going to make it. I did.
Well, awesome. Congratulations for you. And that's really cool that you took the step to really go in there and not necessarily fight your doctor, but just kind of stand
Right.
up for your right as a patient to
Yep.
make your own choices.
Right, exactly. Yep.
So that's really powerful, because I know there is a lot of psychology wrapped around, when you first get some gains on SCD and you're still relying, or maybe you're not even relying on drugs, but they've been there for so long to
Yeah.
to remove them can be especially against the doctor's orders or wishes. That's a pretty psychological trying time for a lot of people, but I think you're another case story and testament to the idea that if you're seeing success on the diet, work with or make your doctor aware of your want to get off the drugs. And I think as long as you're seeing improvements and you're not in a life-threatening situation,
Right, exactly.
they should be approached just like we talk about with foods. You're never going to know until you stop.
Right,
So,
exactly. Very true.
okay, great. So you're on the diet, and you said you were still in a flare at the end of month one. Um,
hmm
so did you do the intro diet then, or did you kind of jump right into all the foods, or how did you go about it?
I definitely had to do the intro diet, because I knew that there was just things that my stomach would definitely not agree with. And, I know Elaine mentions, the cheesecake recipe. Everybody talks about that one, that's something that she mentions, kind of in the beginning. And I knew, I was like, there's no way my stomach could tolerate that right now. So I had to mash and puree and stay light. And at that time, I couldn't even eat steak. I couldn't eat, meat. So she had mentioned, beef patties. I did turkey burgers. That's kind of was, my thing. Turkey burgers, fish. I ate a lot of shrimp. Oh, my gosh, because I was so kind of tired, and, I'm still waking up with an infant. So, it was like shrimp was the easiest thing to kind of just throw on the stove and just heat up. There really doesn't require much effort. And then I would have mashed avocado with it. So even now, all this time later, I kind of look at shrimp and avocado, and I'm like, ugh. And that's how I hate it so much. I'll eat it definitely, but it's not one of my favorite foods anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But I think it's just more beneficial when you start light. You kind of know your body, you know what you're going through at that time, and you can kind of play around with it a little bit. I also didn't eat a lot of fruit in the beginning, and I know a lot of people talk about, fructose intolerances and things like that. I don't know if I really knew I had a fructose intolerance, but I just knew that I just couldn't eat it. I did do the mashed banana, and sometimes I add a little cinnamon to that. And, again, kind of added things, a couple days. If I did okay, then I might, add something else. But I felt limited in the beginning, but that was okay with me.
Yeah, that's great, and it sounds like a really intuitive way of just listening to your body, and I think that's the optimal way. Me and Jordan have kind of put a system or a method to it, but it all comes back down to just trying something and listening to your body and figuring out what works for you. So, you should definitely pat yourself on the back for taking a great slow approach that a lot of people, frankly, don't ever listen to their body, and they just kind of jump in and
Right.
take whoever's recommendation to heart right away. And I think that's a big, or it can be a big mistake.
Right. I think it's kind of setting yourself up for failure in the beginning, and I think sometimes that's why people find it doesn't work. And I try to tell and lead people to, I know it's so boring, and I know it can be monotonous, and I know you get hungrier, and, But if you eat every 2 hours and you're eating bland things and you're keeping it simple, I just find that, you're giving your digestion and your gut some time to just, just heal itself. So, I mean, even, I'm 7 months in or whatever, and it's, I still find I have issues with certain things. I can't have apples because apples bring back my arthritis symptoms. So does tomatoes. And butternut squash, I love it so much, but it does not love me. So we're just still at this point, and cheese and dairy. I still can't do cheese and dairy. So still at this point, there's things that I can't have, but I'm okay. I'm just okay with that, One day, I keep telling myself, one day maybe I can, bring those things back without issues.
Yeah, I could totally sympathize with you there because I still can't do dairy. I can do the goat's dairy, but I can't do the cow's dairy. So it actually doesn't cause me digestive problems, but like you kind of alluded to, it's all the other things. Like it instantly makes me stuffed up, and I have like head cold symptoms and stuff like that. So I think it's really, I never suspected before starting the diet that I had a dairy problem. I mean, I think I drank a gallon of milk a day from like age 14 to 18. So I never would have guessed that I had a dairy problem. But I feel like once I got rid of a lot of the digestive issues and started clearing up some of the nutrient deficiency issues and the inflammation was really low, that's when you start to realize that, man, diet can really touch so many areas of my body that, like you said before, you never would have guessed.
No, never. Yep.
So let's change gears here a little bit. So you own this group, or you moderate, sort of. I know on Facebook the rules are a little different, but basically you moderate the SCD support group on Facebook.
Yep.
What are like the biggest challenges you see, or what are people constantly asking, over and over again, that we can talk about here tonight?
I actually moderate two groups. One is actually a Crohn's and colitis group as well. And, I'm always putting it out there about the diet. It's actually why I made the SCD support group. And so I hear it on both sides. And I think, there's a few things that really kind of hold people back from doing the diet. And maybe I can get your opinion on this as well. Number one, I guess, for them is commitment, like being able to stay committed to the diet. And for me, it was just kind of like a day-by-day thing. Like I had to look at it day by day. I couldn't look at like the huge picture. But Steve, what do you think yours, like with commitment, what would you tell people?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think to stay committed, like once you get on the diet, like you said, it's important to start see some quick wins or see some subtle changes that can really give you a positive feedback, right away in the first couple weeks. I think that helps with, like you said before, it can be a little monotonous, and it's by far one of the hardest things in the world to do is change your diet, whether you're changing to SCD or you're changing to a low-carb diet or Atkins or gluten-free. For any number of reasons, changing your diet is not something easy. So I think it is important to see some quick wins. So that's, like you were talking about, that's why we really like to advocate to people to start slow, start small, keep things easy. But as far as like once you get started and say you're not achieving the results, or life gets hard at times, and it sometimes the cooking can become a source of frustration, the shopping can be a source of frustration. I think what's really important is to keep a really good journal of what is changing. Keep a record of your bowel movements, use the Bristol stool chart, give them values, and then the biggest thing, I think it's really important for mentally to stay going is kind of the nebulous things we were talking about earlier, such as like energy levels and mental clarity, because what I find helping people is really interesting, but after they see like those initial couple wins, like long enough to hook them, and they're staying on for 30 days or 40 days, um,
Mhm.
they get so much better so fast that they forget how bad they used to feel. And
Yes.
so without a journal to refer back and say, oh my gosh, on the first of the month, like I went to the bathroom 12 times and I wrote in here that I stink so bad I don't want to smell myself. Until you go back, if it's been 2 weeks even since you've had that kind of problem, we
Mhm.
don't want to think about that. We've all been in that situation with the pain, and it's something that we really, really want to block out of our minds. And
It is
so
right.
I think the commitment can be easily solved, or I no, I think it can be easily solved if you're willing to go back and revisit the pain and remember why you're doing this. And like you said, you can track it on a day by day thing. Am I better than yesterday? But
Mhm.
sometimes we on the SCD diet, you can get into different flares, you can get into different setback points. And so if you can look back at a range of 7 days or 2 weeks and say, I had 4 down days in a row, and right now I think the world is imploding around me. Um,
Mhm.
but if I look back 5 days, it was the brightest day I've had in 6 months.
Yes.
So I think that's really important to keep a little perspective on the fact that we are battling some pretty heavy diseases here, and
Mhm.
you don't just flip a light switch and get results, but
Right.
sustained effort and sustained tracking of how you're feeling and what you're doing, I think is really a way to stay committed and see the results you want to see.
I definitely agree with that as well.
Now, did you do a whole lot of tracking? Did you use calorie tracking or anything like that?
Fitday.com, I did for a while. I don't do it anymore. I guess with having little ones, I kind of like, fell off of the wagon of using it. But now I just kind of know more. Like if I'm bringing something new, because I pretty much eat, the same things pretty much all the time. But if I'm bringing in something new, like the other day I did sauerkraut, and because that was my first fermented veggie.
Hmm.
And, so of course you're listening in. You're kind of listening to your body like, okay, how are you going to do with this? And I did okay. I did fine with that one. Um, and I know I'm getting enough calories because I'm finally, I was at a point where I kind of lost initially, and then now I'm gained, and now I just sustain. Even though I exercise every day and I work out, I'm just same weight, which is great. That's never happened before.
Yeah, I think that's one of the cool little side effects of SCD is it really is a once you understand the proportions and calorie volumes, relationships of natural food compared to processed food, the
Hmm.
diet is really it just normalizes people's weights. If people are overweight, they tend to lose weight, and if people are underweight, they just tend to gain weight. So
Right.
in
Yep.
that regard, I just view it as another checkbox for a supremely healthier way to eat.
Yep. I agree.
So
And I guess when we were talking about challenges that people had, um, I think you briefly said cooking, just to go back for a minute. Um, but this is really funny because before SED, I did not cook. I did not cook anything. If I cooked something, it came out of a box.
yeah.
I would be like the only person that would burn eggs. But so my husband was the cook in the house. So I found that once I started getting my energy levels back, I wanted to cook. I wanted to be in the kitchen, and I wanted to learn. And, I definitely got laughed at by family because I would call them and say, how do you make a roast? Or how do you cook the chicken? But, I just take their recipes and kind of tweak it to SCD and, and use it from there. But yeah, I mean, when some people say, well, I don't like to cook, or I can't cook, or I don't have time, or, and I think, wow, I really did not know how to cook. But that is something that is a really big challenge that I had to overcome myself. So if anybody ever sees that as being a challenge, I can completely relate to that.
Yeah, and I think most of our listeners have heard Jordan and I talk about our awesome cooking skills. I mean, we were just fresh out of deep frying everything that came in front of us at a fraternity house. So I was with you. I think the only thing that I'd ever done is made chicken. So
Right.
I think you kind of touched upon it, or it seemed to come out in your speaking about it, though, is you really looked at the cooking as like a kind of a positive challenge, or like
Mhm.
you looked at it in a positive light, like, hey, maybe this is a skill that I want to learn in my life, or this is
Right.
an opportunity to learn something new and really, take another step forward for myself. And I think that's really awesome, and I think that's the way I approached it. But I wish
Mhm.
I wish I could spread that out to more people because in the beginning I did think, man, this is kind of a burden that I'm spending a lot of time in the kitchen, but the payback is kind of the same way the diet was. It's paying me back in all these different ways I didn't expect it to, such as like, now I cook meals for my family, or I can give my mom a break in the kitchen, that's never happened before.
Right.
Just things like that where I can show my love, in other ways, or
Mhm.
having enough confidence to say make a bunch of even SCD legal hors d'oeuvres or something for a big party. Um,
Right.
People don't even need to know that they're SC legal, and they end up tasting amazing. Just put bacon on something, and you win.
And they love it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess I just wanted to summarize that and totally agree with you that the cooking seemed like a big challenge for me as well. And
Mhm.
one of the things that we really spent a lot of time addressing in our ebook was the cooking aspect, and just putting all of our little learnings of setting the smoke detector off several times in 1 week, and just writing down what works and what doesn't work. So if there
Right.
if there's other people out there, we have created a step-by-step guide for people like us who've never cooked before. So,
Oh, I wish I had known about it when I started. I think I might have bought that.
well, what?
And also, I guess back to cooking, like, the other thing I suggest to people when they say they don't have time, they work, they do whatever, I always say, cook in batches and freeze. Like, you cannot even imagine how much of a help that is. It's kind of like having a microwavable meal at your fingertips, except for it's healthy and it's legal.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now everybody, I think, kind of has like some little tips that they do. So, can you kind of share some of your like best used bulk cooking tips for everybody?
I use, oh goodness, let me think. Now you put me on the spot. I have to think.
Well, even just like
Well, even like one of my favorite things to make is like fried chicken, and I don't know why. And I fried in the almond flour,
okay.
and I make a huge batch of that because I'm obsessed with it. I eat it all the time. My family loves it. So that's one of the things that I have frozen before. Now, it gets a little soggy when you reheat it, but, I mean, if you're fanatical like me, I still eat it because it's just still so good. Um, and then meatloaf. That's like the other thing. It's so easy to make. You can make such a giant loaf, when you're just cooking for the family anyway. And then I just cut that thing in half and cut it up into pieces, and then I'll stick that in and freeze it. Um, and then add whatever side that we had for that night, be carrots or frozen squash, or, freeze that, and just a bunch of different things. But those are definitely my biggest freezers.
Okay. Cool. Now, when you say like cook in bulk, like do you mean like 5 pounds of meat bulk, or what kind of bulk are you talking about?
I would do, like, sometimes I have done 5 pounds. Like, sometimes when I make when I do make that meatloaf, I'll do 4 pounds of meat. And my family, oh my goodness, most of them, like my husband, he does stray from the diet a little bit, but he follows it mostly with me.
Hmm.
And in the very beginning, we were making sides for my son, who's 5. And, we'd do like a side of rice, or I'd make him like a side of potatoes. But now I took that all away, and he's eating the same things that we do. So now I'm finding, like, where I had more to freeze, now I feel like I have less because the whole family's eating it, and it's gone. Or, or I'll freeze it and I'll find those two asking for it. Can I have this? And it's in the freezer. Can I have that? So yeah, now I have to share my food. So I feel like yeah, it gets depleted awfully quickly.
Yeah,
So.
they're sticking in your reserves. They're getting your
They
food
are.
supply.
They're digging in there. Especially when it comes to the baked stuff, the baked goodies. Oh my goodness. Both of them.
Well, that's really cool that your entire family is kind of moved over to SCD. Does your son does he miss the other foods anymore? Does he ask for them, or how does that work?
He did in the beginning. He really did. He would ask for certain things, and I'd say no. And one of the reasons is that I'm trying it for him because, as you saw, I had a myriad of other symptoms that that it helped to clear up.
Mm-hmm.
Is he has OCD tendencies, and I know Elaine touches really lightly in the book about kind of our gut and how it's related to the mind.
Yep.
And I thought, why not? Let's try it and let's see what happens. And he gets anxiety and things like that. And he also was he reminded me of me. He was kind of sick with something every other week. He had constant congestion all the time. And he was on what's that? Benadryl. We gave him Benadryl every night before bed.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so now he's at a point where he probably does 90% SED, 10% whatever. If he's out, he just had a birthday party and he requested his favorite meal that I used to cook, which was a pasta dish, and I did make it for him. But anyway, being even just 90-10, I've seen humongous improvements with him. I mean, his anxiety's better. He's not obsessing about things like he used to. He might have a little bit of congestion here and there, but he's off Benadryl. And he hasn't been sick in months, which is amazing because last year he caught everything under the sun. So I know some people can kind of say, oh, well, maybe he just had the year of the Lyme where he got sick all the time or, pass it off as something else. But I notice, because I'm with him every day, all day. So I've seen, it's made leaps and bounds with him. I find his attention's better, too. When we work on something, he has better he's, able to focus better.
That's so encouraging. That's really cool to hear.
Yeah.
Well, good for you for making that choice, to switch him over and see what happened. I mean, that's awesome. So I guess I hope other people out there, I know that from time to time, I answer emails to moms and dads who are getting ready to take the plunge into SCD, and they question whether they can do it with the family. They question whether the family should be on the diet as well because they view it they view SCD as this very restrictive, almost death sentence that they have been handed down because of their problems. And I hope that they can hear this podcast, and I hope that they can just really realize that I think the principles underpinning the SCD diet will be healthier than probably most everybody else's diets out there in your family, and switching everybody over for a little while just to try it, just like we talk about
Right.
it for IBDs, give it 30 days. Just see how your family does for 30 days. And
Right.
I think, my sister's a case in point where, I finally convinced her to get rid of dairy and her migraines are gone. And she used to have daily
Wow.
migraines. So
Wow.
just again, I think the rule applies is give it 30 days. And of course, I don't think if your family members have an IBD that they need to start from, pureed carrots and chicken. But I do think,
right.
I do think that switching them over to, like you said, where you're cooking a little more advanced foods, you got the meatloafs, you got the sauces, you got some baked goodies in there. I think that's still a very well-rounded diet and will help pretty much everybody who tries it.
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking a little bit before, and I think you had another, because you sit on both sides of the fence on these Facebook groups. There was one other thing that we kind of wanted to touch on tonight, and it's slipping my mind right now. But do you remember what that was?
Was it about networking? What's it taught me?
No, but we can talk about that.
um, yeah, I mean, well, it's kind of nice to be able to network. Like I told you, I started off with just being a moderator at our Crohn's and colitis forum, which really is support Crohn's and colitis, and trying to get the word out there. That's the most important. That place is just such a nice place to go to know that you can talk about every symptom you have with IBD and feel like you are not alone. Because sometimes I think even just with the awareness of this disease, as you saw how long it took me to get diagnosed, I just think that there just needs to be more awareness. I mean, for all those years I was diagnosed as IBS, and I know it was something more than that, and it ended up being something more than that. So even I feel like some doctors are just not as educated in it. A lot of people don't know about it. But yeah, that place is just such a great refuge for people, and it's a really nice place when people are looking for alternative methods to heal their gut because they might be like me and the medicine isn't working, or they see how successful I've been on SCD. And it teaches them that they're just not alone. I mean, even that's why I started the SCD support page as well, because, I wanted people to see, I do this. It's a normal thing of life for me. Like, you're not alone. Like, every decision in the beginning that you're feeling, everything you're questioning, I've been there, for the most part. And if I don't know an answer to one of their questions, I research it, which I love. I love doing that. I love researching. I love finding an answer because I learn in the process.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all the work that you do on these various boards, because I think you're right that uh, it's on the backs of us who use SCD and who have seen the results to really continue to spread the word of mouth about how it can help people.
Yes, that's so true. I mean, I feel like I'm paying it forward from the person that told me about it, which we're still in contact with, which is great.
Yeah, yep. And that's definitely something that we try to do as well. Just continue to spread the word, pay it forward, and just touch people. And that's why I end up talking about poop at every family party now. But
I know, right?
that's a side effect, right?
I know, right?
Well, let's wrap this up. I remembered what I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
So you're on all of these. I mean, you're really connected in the community, and you're connected at like a really ground level where you're not really like selling anything, and you're not even promoting a blog or anything. So I think you would have a really good ear into what are like the top problems that you see people making with SCD, and what do you constantly, what are the same pieces of advice that you are continually doling out that maybe you can help some listeners with?
I guess like the number one thing that I keep hearing, and I know it's tough, is first of all, everybody wants to see results right away when they start the diet. And I have to remind them, it will come. It will come, and, it may take time. And, there's some people that can start this diet and feel great in a week. And then there's some people that start this diet, and it literally can take, 2 months, 3 months, whatever. I mean, they may see, like, small, tiny changes, and that's what keeps them going. But if you're anything like me and you were in that bad flare-up, I mean, it's going to take time, So that's kind of like one of the things I always hear about. And that and, what do I eat? What do I eat in the beginning? That's always like the starter diet. What should I have for the starter diet? And Steve, what do you think they should have? Because you've done like a whole ebook on this stuff, and I know, you can only briefly talk about it, but, I kind of answered, just really general, and it's hard for me because I was really flaring. But, where did you come from with that?
Okay, yeah. Well, I read BTVC and the intro diet, and I kind of just went right with that as well. I had Jordan to talk to. He had already gone through the intro diet and he'd been on the diet for several months now. So I kind of talked with him about, his experience on it. And, he had advised me that he had run into problems with gelatin right away. And he also had eggs, but I knew that eggs weren't going to be a problem for me. So I stuck basically right to the blueprint of Elaine's intro diet,
Mhm.
except for I did the same thing you did, and I didn't include dairy, and neither did Jordan,
Right.
because, um, and at the time, it wasn't because I thought I had a dairy problem. It was just because all the research out there that shows that dairy can be such a compounding gut inflammatory
Yeah.
problem
Mhm.
that I was like, I'm already taking all these other foods out. Why would I tempt fate by, eating some cheesecake or something? Like,
Right. Right.
so I was always ready to do the cheesecake, but I was going to give it a couple weeks. And so,
Mhm.
sure enough, about 2 days into the intro diet, I was still not really responding. I took the gelatin and the grape juice out, and bam, like everything changed overnight. It was awesome.
Wow.
So, but I really slowly built up using um, the stages off of pecan bread as like a base, and then me and
Yeah.
Jordan did some extra research into like salicylates and just like the different fibrous vegetables, and we sort of kind of rearranged them a little bit, and
Mhm.
so that's how we kind of created our phases of the diet, and we give that away for free as well as our intro diet step-by-step guide. We'll put a
Right.
we'll definitely put a link in the podcast post here, but that's exactly what I did, and that's basically exactly what Jordan did, except for with some eggs and dairy tweaks. So
Right.
I think it's for people like you said who are starting from a position of pretty poor health in a flare. They're dealing with a lot of blood. They're on several
Mhm.
drugs. I think it's really important to take it slow and use something like the phases or the stages as a guide. And I mean, I tell everybody the same thing. If it's no phases, if like if I told you you have to do the SCD diet with phases, and they said, well, fine, I'm not doing the diet, then I'd say,
Right.
go ahead, don't use the
Do it
phases.
how you want to do it. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
but the unfortunate thing is the people that we talk to and the people that we've had on the show, the same stories keep coming out, which is I didn't use dairy, or when I removed dairy, I got better faster, and when I started slowly, or when I restarted slowly and systematically, my healing just like tripled.
Right.
So I just, being an engineer by trade, I'm always looking for the best practices, the fastest process to get to the end result. And I, from our perspective, the fastest result to perfect poops is nice and slow. So,
There you go. Low and slow.
yep. Okay, great. Well, I think we're getting to a pretty good time here to wrap this up. So, um, we've talked about a lot of things tonight. We've been all over the map. You've shared your amazing story about your health comeback in short time, I must add, which is so awesome, as well as like some cool tips and ideas surrounding family. So, can you kind of sum up something, in 3 minutes here, or just jive on a point that you'd like a listener to take home with them tonight after they get done listening with this?
Hmm. To sum it up, let me think. I guess, it's like how I tell people all the time. It seems like, I kind of say this on the forums and whatnot is just my biggest, I guess, thing for people to start the diet. Just do it. Just do it. You have nothing to lose, but you literally could gain everything. Look at me. I had nothing to lose at that point. He was already talking about immunosuppressants, and I'm thinking, there's no way. There's got to be something else. And that's what really was my motivator to start. And with everything that it helped with my stomach stuff, with bowels, everything, and then to have it clear up all those other things that you wouldn't even think were related at the time. So like I said, I mean, you could gain everything with SCD.
That's perfect. That's period. Exclamation point.
Period. The end, right.
Yeah, that is the end of the show. Well, thank you, Tiffany Reilly, for being on the show tonight, and I want to say a big thank you for me and Jordan for all the hard work you put into the different forums and the pages that you're involved with, because answering those questions and being attentive to all the many people in the many different time zones around the world does take a lot of work. So
Yes.
thank you for all that you do, and thanks for being on the show tonight.
All right. Thanks, you guys, so much for having me.
Oh, it was our pleasure. Our pleasure. So to wrap this up, this has been Tiffany Reilly and Jordan and Steve here with SCD Lifestyle, and you listen to the SCD Lifestyle podcast number 15. So thank you.